Welcome. Namaste. My name is Dena Jensen, and today I'd like to share a low back series with you. I'm calling it Love Your Low Back, and this series is based off of a study that was done at the Boston Medical Center. I did a part 1, and so if you're interested, you can go back and look at that part 1. The study itself was divided into 4 what they called segments, and each segment was practiced for 3 weeks. So it totaled a 12-week practice of yoga. The participants, there were about 320 participants, and they all had this kind of non-specific low back discomfort. It wasn't people that had serious back issues, bulging discs, herniated discs, anything like that, but just that kind of low back pain that so many Americans get. And often when they go to the doctor, they're prescribed a muscle relaxant or some kind of medication. So this study compared yoga to physical therapy, and then the third group got education, and they got more information about the conditions and information of what they could do. Showed that physical therapy and yoga had very similar results. So it was very promising just to have a variety of techniques that are in our toolbox that we can practice to help low back pain. So it's a very gentle practice. Each segment adds a little bit on from the last segment. So this time we will do a lot of what we did for the part 1, and then we'll add on. This adds on a little bit more standing poses, but really gentle standing poses with a lot of support, because it's important if you're having low back pain to go slowly. So if you are watching this and you are somebody that has the low back pain, definitely go with the instructions. If you're not really having low back pain, you just enjoy yoga, you like a little gentle yoga, then of course you can do things that might be a little bit different than the way that I'm instructing. An important part of the study, and in yoga, as you know, if you are a yoga person, an important part of all of it is your breath, remembering your breath, paying attention to your breath, having specific breath techniques, relaxation, and our state of mind. So in the study, they did teach some yoga philosophy, and this segment was focused on accepting where we are, accepting our body, and also celebrating all the things that our bodies can do. And I think that is such an important lesson. Yes, we have pain, we have discomfort mentally, physically. There's a variety of conditions we all bring to the mat, and that is part of us. And we have a part of us that we can celebrate. We have a part of us that's feeling good. We have so much to have gratitude about. So try to cultivate that in this practice, is recognizing, boy, there is a lot that my body actually does for me and supports me. Okay, so what the suggested props for the practice, because this is a more gentle practice and often gentle practices do use more props. If you have a chair, I'm going to show you a few things you can do on a chair. If you have a block or some firmer pillows or something like that, or some blankets, then we'll be using those. And then there's also an opportunity to use a belt, a strap, a scarf, a tie that goes around your bathrobe, anything like that. So as I'm getting to my mat, why don't you gather those things so you have everything that you need, okay? And if you don't have those things, it's okay. We're also going to use a wall. So if you are able to move yourself to somewhere where you'll be able to just put your hand on a wall, it doesn't need to be a giant wall that's completely blank, but just somewhere that doesn't have furniture in front of it, that would be better. All right, so let's get started. Find what you need, and then join me on the mat. All of the breath work in the study was done lying down on your back. So please, if you would lie on your back, get anything you need to support your back body, and that might be lying down on a carpet or lying down, on a blanket or something like that. Knees. Always when you're on your back, keep your knees bent, and it's nice because that can relax your low back. Arms to your side, and we'll just begin with a couple of natural breaths. So close your eyes and tune into your own breathing. Feel your breath in and out through the nose. And settle into this experience of having gratitude for the things that you can do. And maybe you can even find one or two things right now in your body that you're grateful for. And let's do some breath work. The breath work that's recommended is the 3-part breath. So I'll guide you through that. It can be nice to move your hands along the body if that is accessible to you. So if you put your hands down on the low belly, we'll start with a nice inhale and try to expand the low belly into your hands. And on the exhale, just release. So that's the belly breath. We'll do 1 or 2 more belly breaths. Inhale into the belly. Expand it slightly like a balloon. And exhale as you release. Be gentle. Inhale into the belly. Doesn't have to be a giant rise, just some movement in the belly. Exhale, release. Okay, come back to natural breath. The 3-part breath divides that one inhale into 3 parts. So we'll bring part of the breath, about a third of the breath, into the low belly. We'll move the hands up to the ribs, and you can just use fingertips into the rib cage and try to expand the rib cage out on the second third, and then put your hands in your collarbone at the top of the body for the last third. So do the best. If you've never done any breath work, maybe stick with the belly breathing. Okay. Let's begin with an in breath, filling up a third into the low belly. Keep moving and transitioning to your ribs, and then bring the inhale all the way up to the upper chest. On the exhale, let everything go at one time. Take a natural breath in and out. And we'll begin again. Inhale into the belly, transition to your ribs, breathe into the upper chest and collarbone, and breathe out as you relax. And the breathing happens in and out through the nose. Another breath into the belly, smooth transition into the ribs, all the way up to your upper chest, and release. And we'll do one more. Breathing into the belly, move to the ribs, and move to all the way upper chest. And exhale as you release. All right, let's let the breath come back to a natural pattern. All right, we're beginning the warm-ups. So the study divides this practice, they call them warm-ups, and then they say the middle section they call yoga postures, and then cool downs. We'll begin by hugging one knee into the chest. It doesn't matter which one. So step your foot up from the ground, and you can hug around the back of the thigh or the top of the shin. And just stay here for a breath, seeing how the hip and the low back feel, feeling that low back pressed into the ground, and then step your foot down, and let's step the other foot in. Give a good hug, as much as you want or as little as you want today. Step the foot down. Let's combine with breath. Take a breath in, and on your exhale, hug the knee in, your first knee in, and then step the foot down on the exhale. Inhale, exhale, hug the knee in. Pause for an inhale, exhale, step the foot down. One more time. Inhale, exhale, hug the knee in. Let's pause for an inhale. Breathe out, step the foot down. Inhale, exhale, step the other knee up. And on an exhale, step down. You could keep doing that for a few more times, or we can hug both knees into the chest, step one foot up at a time. Breathe in, and then exhale as you hug both knees into the chest. And you can stay here for a few breaths. If you'd like to add on a little movement, you can release on an inhale. Let your arms stay, your hands stay on your knees. The elbows are straight, the arms are straight. And then exhale, hug the knees in. Inhale, release the knees, but keep your hands on the body. Exhale, hug. Just a few more of these movements. And now have awareness as you hug the knees in and release what's going on in your low back, feeling that good stretch through the low back. And both of these exercises that we've already done and the other warm-ups can all be done in your bed. So consider that before you get out of bed doing a few of these. All right, let's step the feet down. Step one foot down, step the other foot down. That's always the safest for the low back. And we'll come into twists, some gentle twists. They suggest to step your feet and knees together and your arms just out by the side, somewhere that's out of the way. Let's put the palms up. See how that feels for you. Take a breath in, and on your exhale, knees can gently drop to one side. And you could have a block or pillows under that side to catch your thigh if that feels like you need some support. And then breathe the knees back in on an inhale. Exhale, let the knees drop to the other side. Gently going back and forth. Breathing in, and you can even turn your head away from the knees. And then inhale, bring everything back to center. Exhale, go to the other side. And just going back and forth, tuning into the things that are going well for you, your gratitude, making on any modifications you want for this twist. So if there's a different style of twist you'd like to do here, then you should feel free and empowered to practice that twist. So let's go back to where we started, the first side, and then go in the opposite direction. And then we'll come back to center. Okay, so the last part that's on our back are the pelvic tilts. Now we separate the feet so that the feet are sits bones distance apart, hip distance apart, and just have them a comfortable distance away from your body so that you feel supported in your feet. And let's tune into the back body and feel and imagine the top of your back waist. And that can be a 12 o'clock spot if we were imagining a clock. And then your tailbone can be a 6 o'clock. Take a breath in, and on your breath out, let's press into the top of the back waist, press the low back into the ground, the 12 o'clock spot. And then on your inhale, rock the pelvis forward until you're tipping the tailbone towards the mat more, going towards that 6 o'clock. And then exhale, rock the pelvis backward. You're pulling the belly in, pressing the waist down, and then inhale as you rock the pelvis, letting the tailbone drop towards the mat. And let's go back and forth with your breath. Breathe out, press the low back and the top of the waist into the mat. Inhale, lift that part of the body as you rock towards the tailbone. Keep going, breathe out, belly in, spine down. Breathe in, lift the spine gently. The hips stay on the ground the whole time as you're going through your pelvic tilts. In the last video, the part 1, I described this or cued this through the front body. So there's different places where you can pay attention to as you move the pelvis and rock it back and forward. And make these movements just a little bit smaller now and come back to your natural pelvis where you're not pressing the spine into the ground, but there's not a giant arch either, neutral pelvis. Okay, so to come up from lying down, the safest way, the gentlest way is to lift an arm if you can. You don't have to lift the arm overhead, and then roll over onto that side, stacking your knees, stacking your hips, stacking your shoulders, and then you use the strength of your hand, you use the strength of your core muscles. You can even turn towards the mat a little bit as you walk yourself up. Okay, so we're going to do cat-cows. Most people are really familiar with cat-cows. If you could find a blanket, if you have sensitive knees, if you don't need that, then we'll come on to your hands and knees. So let's get the architecture of your pose, stacking our joints, standing up on your bones. Knees are underneath your hips. Your feet can point straight back, or the toes can be curled under, wrists underneath your shoulders. Your fingers are spread out a gentle distance apart from each other, and you stay grounded through the index pad and the thumb pad of the finger as you go through these exercises. So we're here in a neutral table. And then take a breath in, and on your breath out, drop your tailbone, drop your head, puff up in between your shoulder blades and then mid back towards the ceiling. And then inhale as you flip the spine. So gently release the tailbone up and pull the heart away from the navel. Don't sag into the low back. Exhale, drop the tailbone, drop the head, puff up the back body with your breath. And then on an inhale, Flip the spine. Keep a little bit of integrity in the low belly as you reach the heart away from the navel. Exhale, drop the head, drop the tailbone, press into your hands and get a good stretch. Inhale, flip the spine. So you want the movement to really happen in the upper spine and not dump into the low spine. Last one, exhale into your cat, rounded spine. If you want to sit back towards your heels a little bit, that can feel nice for the low back. And then inhale, come on back to neutral table. Okay, so now we'll go into child's pose, and that's not always the most comfortable pose for people. If you have a blanket, you can put a blanket in between your calves and your thighs. You can put a blanket underneath your knees here. You can practice this with your toes together and your thighs together, or if you need more space, you can open up the thighs a little bit. I do like to try to have my thighs supporting my ribs so that I get a stretch in the back. We want to get a C curve. So just be thinking about that as you go through this. And if the head doesn't touch, you can stack your fists or you can put your head on something. So some of you probably have come into child's pose already, but if you haven't yet, sit the hips back towards the heels, release the head, reach your arms forward if you don't need them to support your head, and let the tailbone get heavy. So if this is hurting your knees or the hips don't feel good, please just flip it over and be on your back and hug your knees. So you can really use some breath. Take a nice breath in through the nose and try to puff up the back. Exhale, release. Inhale. Try to get breath into that back body, especially with the breath in. Exhale, release. We'll do one more. Inhale. And exhale. So walk your hands back until they're underneath your shoulders. Press into the mat to lift yourself up. Okay, so now we want to stand up. However you like to stand up, so you can curl your toes under, tip back, tip your knees up and stand up, or you can step a foot forward, put your hand on a knee and stand up, or any way that you like to stand up. Okay, so we're going into the some of the standing poses, but in the study, they still consider this to be our warm-up. Let's find mountain pose. It's your first standing pose. We want to feel balanced in your feet, the right foot, the left foot, and find these little compass points on your feet. So it can be described as four corners or the tripod, and it's all we're trying to get to the same place where we have an evenness in the feet. So feeling the middle of your heel and feeling the pinky side, the pinky toe mounds and the big toe mounds, that tripod, a slight lift in your arch, and some strength in your legs. So today we have more standing, working on your strength. So some strength, hugging the muscles to the bones in your legs, lifting the crown of the head. And then as you want to try to stack things, again, getting into the architecture of the poses. And this is something that you could do in front of a mirror, or you could try to do it against a wall. We're trying to get the head on top of the spine, the ear on top of the shoulder, shoulder on the hip, hip above the ankle and knee. And once you're there, it's interesting to see what the pelvis is doing. And we can do the pelvic tilts here if you put your hands on the hip bones. And then if you curl the tailbone under and tuck it, you're going to feel a pressure forward. And sometimes that can have discomfort in the low back. And you also usually collapse in the chest. And if you do the opposite and have the big sway back where your pelvis is forward and the tailbone is way out, like a gymnastic landing, then we're puffing out in the ribs and we're contracting in the low back. So you want to just go back and forth and try to find the place where your pelvis is neutral. So it's lifted enough that you have some space in the low back, but it's not lifted so much that you're pushing your thigh bones forward. Okay, and then place your hands in front of your heart. That's your mountain pose. Let's take a breath in and out in mountain pose. And chair pose is next. Reach your arms in front of you You can have the palms down or the palms facing each other. If you don't want to keep arms lifted, then W arms or hands on your waist. And the way they describe this in the study is, your feet are still hip distance apart, arms out, and you bend the knees, shift the hips back, but they want you to keep a neutral pelvis. So there is a slight tucking of the tailbone. And I think that they were doing it this way. You can't go very far when you do it this way. I think the idea is to get the stretch in the low back and then stand up. Breathe in, breathe out. Let's come into one more chair pose. And then we'll stand up. Okay, so crescent pose is the next pose. Find mountain pose. And we can lift the arms overhead, however you would like to get there. So that can be arms out and up or forward and up. And just stay in this extended mountain. And we'll choose your right palm to face forward and then hold on to the right wrist with your left hand. Breathe in and then breathe out and pull yourself a little bit over to the left. Stay grounded in both feet, especially the right foot. And then we'll inhale, come back to center, other switch. So let's point the left palm forward and hold on to the left wrist. Breathe in and breathe out. Pull yourself over. And then come back up. You don't have to go very far. Do each side one more time. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Switch. Exhale. And then come on back to center. Release. We're going to stretch out the shoulders a little bit. Here's where you may want a strap or the belt. If you can clasp your hands behind your back, you can interlace fingers with your arms straight. You won't need the prop, but the prop can be nice. Holding the prop, I'm going to suggest that you hold the prop with the palms forward, okay? And the prop goes behind you. The strap, the belt, the scarf, whatever you have. And you hold on to that as you squeeze the shoulder blades together, and then you can pull on the strap. So you pull your hands apart from each other a little bit, and that'll give you an interesting sensation. And you're squeezing the shoulder blades together, relaxing the shoulders away from the ears. Take a breath in. You could be doing this with your fingers interlaced if you would rather. And if it's okay for you, you might even lift the arms a little bit away from the back, but make sure the front of the arms are still pulled back and your collarbones are open and you're not puffing out into your front ribs too much. Okay, and then release. You'll need the strap at the end of the practice. Okay, so the next thing is with a chair. If you have a chair, this is going to be a twist. So if you have a chair, let's get your chair. And if you don't have a chair, it's not a problem. You can do a standing twist, or you could go lie on your back and do the twist that we began with. So we sit in the chair. We sit on the side of the chair with the back of the chair to your left side or your right side. It doesn't matter which. Take an inhale, tall spine, and then on an exhale, twist towards the back of the chair and put your hands on the back of the chair. And let the inhale lift you tall in the spine, and the exhale pulls your belly in. And your hands, if you want, they can keep turning you around. Relax your shoulders. You can look straight. You can look behind you. With an inhale, tall spine, and the exhale can twist you more if you want, or hold. And then inhale, come back to center. So this is I love doing the twist this way. We're going to do the other side. I'm going to flip just so you can see me, but you can just turn yourself on the chair. All right. So inhale, tall spine. Exhale, turn towards the back of the chair. You should be on your other side. And then put your hands on the back of the chair. Let the inhale lift the spine tall. The exhale turns you towards the back of the chair. Stay long and tall through the spine. The exhale pulls the belly in a little bit, giving you some support for the low back. Each inhale lifts the spine a little taller. Each exhale can hold or can twist you a little more. And then take a nice breath in, come back to center. Okay, so now we're going to do Downward dog at the wall. And if you're somebody you'd rather do it on a chair, you could do downward dog at the chair. You already have it out. You could do downward dog on your mat if you like to practice the downward dog. But I'm going to come over to the wall and show you how to do downward dog at the wall. So stand with your feet hip distance apart or even wider. You need to be able to reach the wall, and we're going to have our hands higher than the shoulders. If your wrists are a little tired having your hands on the wall, you can come onto fingertips. So you just fan out those fingers just like if you had your hands on the ground like when we did the table pose. And walk the feet back just a little bit, and everybody has to just figure this out for themselves. And then fold at the hips, fold at your hip creases, right, at your hip joints. As you shift the hips back, relax your head into your upper arm. Push gently into the wall. So you kind of push the wall away from you. Imagine you're hugging like a beach ball in between your elbow creases so that there's a little bit of hugging motion in. And breathe. So we don't go too low here, and you can bend the knees if you need to. Or just stay here for another breath in and out. So this is a really nice introduction to downward facing dog pose. Okay, so our next standing pose is the triangle pose at the wall. And again, you could use a chair for this, or you could do triangle pose standing if you like to do it standing. So now we're going to have our side facing the wall. And separate your feet, a decent distance apart from each other. It doesn't have to be a huge amount, but you need to have some space in between your feet. So whatever leg is closest to the wall, you're going to turn from the hip, the knee, and the foot. Turn that whole leg out and point the toes and feet towards the wall. And the back foot, the toes can come in and the back foot heel can kick out. So you've got a little bit of this diagonal of your hips, not quite facing the front and not quite facing the wall either. It's kind of in between there. And then a little bit of a twist in the front, in the top of the body from the ribs and the shoulders that turns away from your front leg. And then I like to start the triangle pose, remembering that your feet are supporting you. This is all about strength. So push your feet into the ground. Pull the energy up, especially the back leg. And then if you need to tap on your glute there to turn it on, let that support you. So that's really important, is getting the support of the legs. This is so much about the legs. And then the arms, let's point the palms straight forward and lift the arms to shoulder height. And then like you're going to put your hand on this wall, lean forward and just put the hand on the wall, and then the other arm can lift up. So you can move the hand down the wall a little bit if you want. If you were too close or too far away from the wall, you make your adjustments. Take a breath in here, breath out, and then stay strong in the legs. Lift yourself back up, release the arms, and we'll do the other side. So I'm going to turn around because I don't have a good wall on the other side. You'll just see me from behind. So go ahead and turn around. And now you should have the opposite foot, thigh, the hip, the knee, the foot turns towards the wall, kick out the back heel, ground through both feet, lift the energy up the back leg and engage that glute. If you were too close to the wall, you move further away this time. Point the palms forward, lift up. I'm a little too close. Lift the arms to shoulder height and then lean towards the wall. Put your hand on the wall. And the other arm can just reach out to your side. Staying strong in both legs. One more breath in and a breath out. And then we'll come up on an inhale, release the arms and step out. Okay, so the next pose is forward bend at the wall. Come towards the wall and have your feet hip distance. Step one foot behind you. But keep that foot that you stepped back on the same line that it was on. So you don't want to have a tightrope stance. You want to have a wide stance so that you can turn your hips towards the wall. And then we'll take a breath in and fold at the front leg, whatever leg is closest to the wall. Have a deep bend in that hip crease as you come forward with a long spine, and put your hands on the wall. So if you need to bend the front knee, you can bend the front knee. Ground through both feet. Hug your inner thighs in towards each other. Take one breath in and one breath out. So this is like the pyramid pose. And then step that back foot forward, and we'll do the other side. Step the opposite foot back and a little out. Take your breath in. Bend at your hip crease. That's your front leg now. Step into both feet. Hug your inner thighs together. Keep that support of your legs. For one breath in and out. And then let's step forward. Okay, so now we're getting down onto the belly. We're going to do a bunch of back bends and do any variation that works the best. This is going to strengthen your back. So we did a lot of stretching. We did a lot of things for the legs. And now we're going to strengthen the back. Come on down. We'll do the locust pose as the first pose. Locust pose, you lay down, facing down. And spread your legs out apart from each other. Put your arms down by your side with your hands next to your hips. I like to have my palms down. Release your shoulders away from the ears. Squeeze the shoulder blades towards the spine and feel the lift of the shoulders away from the floor. And then on an inhale, lift the legs, lift the heart, lift the arms. Squeeze the shoulder blades together. Look down your nose. Take one breath in and out here. So make sure your chin isn't poked up. I'm going to be looking down. If you need to take a break, and then come down. And you might want to just take a breath, a moment. You can stack your hands and put your head on your hands or your forehead on your hands. Okay, so the next pose is the Sphinx pose. And this can be a really hard pose. So if you don't like the Sphinx, you can do that locust pose again. Legs are hip distance apart, really long legs. So you can pick up one leg and lengthen it, pick up the other leg and lengthen it. Put your elbows underneath your shoulders. If that's too much of a lift, you can walk the elbows forward. If you can't get your forearms to parallel to each other, you can clasp your hands, interlace your fingers. So make your choices. And then ground through the legs. So you want all of your toes grounded, the center of your foot grounded, the legs active, the kneecaps come off the ground a bit, and bring the belly in a little bit, squeeze your glutes. And then I like to imagine that I'm pulling myself forward. So if you ground through your hands, if you ground through the forearms, and then imagine you're dragging your elbows back, it might give you a little more opening in the front chest. Look down your nose, one more breath in and out. And then we'll come into Cobra pose. So Cobra pose, you keep all the low body the same. You just walk your hands back a little bit. So the hands end up underneath the shoulders. Elbows are pointed straight up. The hands can be under shoulders, or they can be at the top of the ribs or mid ribs. Squeeze the elbows together. Stay grounded in the legs, lifted in the kneecaps. Squeeze your glutes. And then on an inhale, pull the heart forward and up as though you're pulling the spine out of the pelvis. So keep the pelvis grounded, but lift the heart away from the navel. Look down your nose. And again, with your hand, you can imagine you're trying to pull yourself forward towards whatever edge of the mat you're facing. You're trying to pull yourself more there. And then release. Okay. So the last couple poses are bridge pose, and then we're going to get to all of the cool down. So if you flip yourself over, lie on your back. And if you've had enough of the back bends, that can be, you don't have to do any more back bends here. Bridge pose, step your feet hip distance apart, step the feet into the body a little bit more, walk your shoulder blades down the mat, your palms face down, the arms are straight. Some people like to hold on to the edges of their mat. You can hold on to the edges of the mat if you want to, and feel your feet. On an inhale, press into the feet and use the strength of your hamstrings and your glutes to lift the hips up. It doesn't have to be a giant movement, so you don't want to use the low back to lift you up. And again, snuggle those shoulder blades in a little bit more and then come down. On your exhale, coming down from the top of the spine, mid-spine, keep the tailbone tucked, 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 and then release. All right, so let's hug the knees into the chest. This is where we started. It's time to cool down. So hug your knees into the chest. This could be one knee, like we did at the beginning. We'll just take a few breaths with the knees in. If there are any movements you want to be doing, you should feel empowered to move or just hold and breathe. Okay, let's step the feet down. If you have that belt nearby, let's find that belt, that strap. And we'll do a big toe pose just for a breath or two on each side. If you have a couple of pillows or a couple of blocks, get those too and put them by your hip. Bend your knees, step one foot into the strap, hold on to opposite sides of your support. You want to get your lifted leg straight, so you might need to slide your hands down the strap to release the leg so it can straighten, or you might need to walk your hands up the strap. So the opposite knee is bent, the opposite foot is on the ground, the lifted leg is straight, and feel a few breaths. Shoulder blades are on the ground, shoulders are relaxed away from your ears, jaw is relaxed. Having some gratitude for all of the wonderful things your body just did for you. Okay, and then we'll come out of that and step your other foot in. And you can put that strap at your comfort level. It can be around your arch, it can be around the toe mounds. The lifted foot has some brightness to it, and the lifted leg, we're trying to get straight. So slide the hands down or up the strap to support the lifted leg. Shoulder blade still on the ground. Soften your expression. Take a few breaths here. And then release. Last pose is lying down cobbler's pose. And this is where you could use, I have a few pillows. You could use a couple of pillows on your outer hips. So step your feet towards each other, knees in, and then release the knees away from each other, opening up the inner thighs, having those pillows support you in any way. You could turn the pillows on a different side if you think that would be better. Take a few breaths here. And then you can use the support of your hands to gently draw the knees together, or you can stay right where you are and go into a full shavasana, a complete relaxation. If you are done, or if you want to do a seated meditation, then draw the knees together, roll over to one side, lift yourself up. Thank you so much for joining me today. Let's place your hands in front of your heart. Thank you for loving your low back and having some gratitude for all of the things that your body can do today. Wishing you a day filled with love and peace and joy. Namaste.